environment education, and water security. The first topic, humans and environment. And we are just going to look at part 1. So let's get started. Look at this slide, you will understand that the population growth of human beings in the world has been rising exponentially, and therefore this curve is known as the exponential curve of population growth. We are at 7.7 billion today, and India's population stands at 2.2 billion. If we look at the demographic transition model, which shows you how a country grows through different phases of expansion and contraction of populations, you will understand that in these 5 phases, the first phase is the pre-industrial phase where no country is today, the transitional phase where a few countries are placed, the industrial or the third phase where the development is peaking, the post-industrial phase where countries like the United States now have everything and are completely developed, and the last, which is the decline phase probably, where you will see that development is at its top and there is also a decline in terms of the population. Also, these different pyramids will show you the exact population growths or increases starting with the early stages of life to the later stages. Migration. If you look at the process of migration, there are two main things in migration. Emigration, that is the movement of people out of a certain area. Immigration, the entry of people in an area. What is migration? It's basically the people and their movement from one place to another. Now, there are various factors that cause migration. They may be push factors where people from one place are actually wanting to go to another because of maybe low wages, maybe because of disputes and conflicts, lack of freedom, lack of medical care, etc. Whereas other places are more lucrative and people are pulled towards these areas for maybe better standard of living, good governance, intellectual freedom, or no discrimination. Human settlements include housing of various types, maybe huts, hamlets, villages, towns, cities, or megacities. This also includes infrastructure development like networks of roadways, railways, or even pipelines that connect these cities to each other. Of course, megacities bring in environmental problems. So if you look at the urban areas, then we have land and biodiversity related problems. We have human health and the aesthetics of the city. Cities looking dirty are all urban problems. Water related problems because there is too much pressure on the water resources. Energy, air and climate and economic effects of over-industrialization on energy, air and climate, which leads to the pollution of all these resources. In the rural areas, the problems are slightly different. So we have poor sanitation as a major problem, conversion of land from farms to residential, lack of drainage facilities, indiscriminate use of pesticides and fertilizers, which is leading to health problems in rural areas. Also, salination, desertification, and degradation of the land in these rural areas. If you look at indigenous knowledge of the people, then we have local people who are tribal maybe, but they have a good knowledge of their local crops and how to conserve them. They are very well aware of how to store their seeds. They also are very good at predicting storms or cyclones because they are linked to their Mother Earth very, very closely. Local people are not only keen to conserve these surroundings, but they also wish to own, control and access cultural heritage materials that is held by cultural institutions or that is found in their own places. And why not? You look at this. You look at the Warli art that we have today. A simple art form which people drew on their walls is now become too commercialized, and the local people now get no sort of compensation for the art that has been taken away from them. A finer form of this art is now completely present in cities. Or the Chipko movement, the Bishnoi Samaj. If you look at them, these are the very people who went and did the Chipko Andolan by sticking to trees and saying no to cutting them. These are the very own people who were responsible for catching Salman Khan in the very famous Black Buck case, where he had killed these deer which are very, very close to the culture of these Bishnoi people. Indigenous community practices are also sacred groves that local people have been conserving for thousands of years. These are small forest patches with a god in it that people consider sacred and do not touch. Sacred groves are under threat today. This is because of urbanization, environmental degradation, because of people who visit these places and are very ignorant about maintaining these plants as they are. There are, of course, changes in the value systems, the cultural systems, the religious attitude of the local people, which have also caused a great threat to the. So how do we protect these sacred groves? We have to protect them by seeing that they are located properly, by preparing a detailed inventory of the flora and fauna in these groves, by assessing the impacts of man-made activities on them, and by assessing all the external threats to these groves like cyclones, floods, forest fires. What do you believe? Do you believe that someone else is going to save the earth? Or do you believe that it is every person's duty to do it? Now go and have a good read in the textbook, and let's continue this in our next video. Bye.